This is number 1 to the Apples and Oranges series on the Perceptive Readers podcast. Hi, I'm James Lynch. I want to pick right up after we talked about the introductory, where at the end we mentioned how this person had a recipe, or maybe you, that required apples, and the person who went to the store, who happened to be a friend, did not, pick up apples. They brought back a bag of oranges. Now, I encourage you to go back through and listen to that whole episode, or that whole beginning of the Apples and Oranges series. But here is where I want to pick up at about how important it is that things are not the same, even though they may seem this would be the same, just by, sprucing it up. Basically, apples and oranges go into, yes, you can have two things and they can even be good, but in certain situations, certain requirements, this good thing still does not fit in this scenario. It does not fit in this concept, if you will, or to establish a premise. Now, for this series again, who would this be for? Well, everyone would enjoy it. Everyone can enjoy it. But there's a group that still comes to my mind at times, and I've been fascinated with the subject over the years, happens to be, health, mental health, caregivers, and people of that nature. In this case specifically, persons who really do study the mind and study persons in order to, go in the fields that they can actually help people with this situation or that. Now, some of them, as part of their job, they just listen a lot. They listen a whole lot. However, there are actually topics covered at times where the person is really saying some very interesting scenarios, or bringing out situations where then the person who is actually in that field of listening and knowing when something is, oh no, this is not an apple here. No, this is not an orange here. This is something totally different, where I may want to speak up and give a lot more help or conversation, or dive into questions, if you will, to be able to help that person. So that's what this series, Apples and Oranges, happens to be about. Knowing what belongs with this situation. You see, some situations are certainly a lot more serious than what we talked about in the apple pie recipe. And it requires more thought to it on, hey, is this just something that, no harm, no foul? Or once again, is this in the area of, no, you're seriously pulling my leg? It goes into, as I've mentioned earlier, about health. You see, there are some advices and counsel given at times from persons who are even well-meaning, that, hey, this actually worked for me. However, because of not knowing your body, your medical situation, your medical history, how you're even feeling right now, then they cannot, and wouldn't want to really push any medical advice on you. Now would they, you see? And so you, again, have to consider, okay, what is applicable for me here and what is not applicable for me here? Even though it may be a apple that a person is looking for over there, it is an orange affecting me over here. It's not giving what is needed. And that again is so important today. So again, persons who go into these fields, and I'm not talking about right now, even though they could probably gain value too, persons who've been in those types of fields for years. This does not mean that I have a doctorate in it or of that nature. But that's another thing dealing with the apples and oranges scenario. You see, sometimes, just like with the persons I'm mentioning right now who may be fresh out of school, even fresh out of college, they have gained a lot of that information, the cases where this happened, that happened. However, would they right away have the experience that someone who has dealt with persons on this level for decades and more, you see? No, they won't. And so it takes time. However, with their right outlook, they can actually, you see, observe at times still an experienced person and gain the, knowledge or the application of what they've learned in school to know that, hey, I know this says this in textbook, but I see this person now going into their treasure of fruit, if you will, and they're bringing out, hey, a pear for this, you see. They're bringing out strawberries for that because this is what would fit better than anything else, you see. It's the same scenario of making sure that if someone had fell down and scraped their left knee, then when you get the bandage and the wraps, you make sure that you're putting it on the correct knee, whether it's the left or right that's been scraped up. You won't put it on the opposite leg that's not scraped up at all, you see. So it's really continuing to make the knowledge that you have fit the situation, you see, that you're dealing with, to bring about the best results. And that's what wisdom is, as you've heard, the application of knowledge. And so the application of being able to compare whether this is an apple or orange, or this is a no harm, no foul, or pulling my leg situation, it helps you to know. So thank you for once again being with me on this part 1, okay, of the series Apples and Oranges. I will see you now in Apples and Oranges number 2. You have a great day. You have just listened to the Perceptive Readers Podcast. Remember, until next time, if you read something that encourages you to improve or enhance your life for the better, it becomes your reality.